Back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Norman. We're standing here on the dock at Harbor Springs on Monday afternoon. It's about 5 o'clock. We had a chance to spend some time talking with Bob Hughes and Bill Martin, who, in fact, Bob Hughes on Heartbreaker won the race. Let me turn this thing around. You can see Simon as we speak right now. Simon's working on putting sails away. Boat's a little bit dirty, but it's just one of those kinds of things. Beautiful boat. Kind of a tough race during the pandemic, but it was what it was. And I think it's a testament that we got the Bayview got the race off. The guys did what they're supposed to, which I think is pretty cool. Some of the boats are scattered around the great part of the lake. A couple of them headed down. Check out the Bayview website to see all the tracking information. So I'm going to spin again here just so you get an idea. You can see the big 70 behind me stripes. They had a chance to. That's the former University of Michigan athletic director, Bill Martin's boat. We are hopefully going to have a chance to talk to him a little bit later. We wanted to come up and see some of the finishes. Got to give Bayview credit. They did a great job on running the race in the pandemic situation. So Chris Clark has to be real happy with the way things happened. And let me spin around here a little bit more. You can see the DeVos boat there behind. They're in the private area, so you can't get too close to those guys. I was hoping maybe have a chance to talk to the Secretary of Education, but it is what it is. I was fortunate enough to talk briefly with Simon Hedder, who's one of the Australian guys on the boat for Heartbreaker, and we'll show you a little bit of film that later. So stay tuned. We'll hopefully have some information on the race and talk to some other guys. So we'll see you soon. Thanks. We're talking with Bob Hughes, who is the winner of this year's 2020 Bayview Mackinac race on a 52-foot Heartbreaker. Bob, first of all, thanks for coming. You're a member at Mackinac Bay Yacht Club. And this was a unique race this year with the pandemic and all of the processes that had to go in place. First of all, congratulations. Maybe you can say a few words about winning.
Yes, it's well, we were very excited to have the opportunity to race. So the first thing I would say is hats off to Bayview Yacht Club for hosting the race and all the volunteers. I mean, they were swimming upstream against a bunch of obstacles, but they were determined and they put together a terrific race and modified it to make it safe. And I think all the boats followed safe and common sense so that we could get out and enjoy some outdoors. And so getting ready to race, that was a victory. Being able to race was a victory in itself. But then to be able to win line honors and then win the overall, that was truly exciting. The crew worked very hard. It was an upwind race the entire way. We used 2 jibs. I mean, I think we even beat into the slip, but being a little sarcastic. But it was upwind and bumpy, and the crew hiked straight through basically for 27 hours. They were very determined. So
there were some conversations with some of the captains that we talked to that's basically said that some of the folks, you guys had actually sailed farther on this race than if you'd taken the Cove course because of attacking.
I didn't even think about that, but you're probably true. I should go back and look at it, but that's probably pretty close, if not true.
What was the hardest? Just the weather? Just the way the wind blew this year?
Yeah, I would say, there was the big decision at the beginning. It was going to be on the nose right away. We didn't know the strength. We knew it was going to kind of be 10 to 15, but there was this big discussion on how close to get to the shore because we thought that closer to shore the wind was going to die. But then at the beginning, the wind was stronger close to the shore, so that kind of changed our game plan. And then the wind started building up in the middle of the night, and they started getting that steep chop, which the lake is known for when it started coming right out of the north. And so there was about an hour or 2 period where I'm like, guys, we can't break the boat. We got to back off because the boat was just slamming into the waves pretty hard. And I'd say that was probably the hardest part, plus the determination of keeping everybody hiking hard to keep the boat going as fast as possible because we weren't winning according to the tracker about halfway through, but the crew kind of dug deep and pulled us through.
If you look at Mackinac in relationship to other races, is this your first Mackinac win?
One section a handful of times, but we have never won overall. We've gone second a couple times, so this is the first overall for a Mac race. So yes.
If the U.S. Open to golf is equal to the America's Cup to sailing, where does the Mac race fit in to the landscape? And I say that because one of the reasons I want to talk to you is you had I don't think people realize the pro sailors that are on these boats that like yours were. You had a guy on your boat, Simon. I don't know Simon's last name.
Simon Hunter, yes.
Hunter, and I had a chance to talk to him a little bit, and he's from Australia. So where does the Mac, in your mind, where does the Mac fit in the world of sailing?
Well, I think if you grow up here in the Midwest and you say that you race sailboats, there's not enough of us doing that, what's the first thing that somebody says to you that they don't? Do you do that Mackinac race? So, and then they say, well, how'd you do? And if you do poorly, and even if you had a good season, they think you're not very good. And you know how easy it is to do poorly in the Mac race because you guess the wrong way, and it's just a very hard race to win. So to me, the Mac races around here are really an institution in what everybody identifies with sailing. It's really the America's Cup of the Midwest, even though there's distance races. So it's a big deal. And we were very fortunate when I first started racing many, many years ago to win the Queen's Cup overall, which was super exciting. But I had a lot of hair in like 1989, I think. But too many section wins. Yeah, there you go. Same haircut. Works good during these times. But been chasing that elusive Mac overall win for a long, long time. So that was very exciting. One of our great competitors in our fleet is Phil O'Neill from Bayview, and he just got a new 52. He's had one of the first ones, and he just got a newer, faster one, and he's won it a bunch of times. So I've always been upset with him because he's won this one so many times. And Bill Martin, great. There's just so many great people great sailors that I've respected trying to chase this thing for so long that have won it. So it felt great for our team to win.
You think most folks that follow, even the casual racers, realize the kind of crews that you guys put on board? Because you're talking about some real serious pro sailors that are on some of these boats.
Yes, on our team, and there's a couple different ways you can go to these boats. You have to remember the TP52s. It's really the preeminent monohull class in the world today. There's 10, 11 of them that race over in Europe on a circuit, and all the crews are paid. They're full-on boats, and these boats are really the Formula Ones of monohulls. They're tweaked, they're built, everything's custom on them. They're changing them all the time, and they're really wind machines that are not built for multiple day races over the course of a season. You have to keep them up, and likewise, there's so many systems and fine tunings that can just make a half a knot difference. If someone's going to have a Formula One car, you're not going to get me to drive it. You're going to get Lewis Hamilton to drive it so he can drive it right and fast. Same thing with these boats. To get the most out of them, you've got to have people that really know. So most of us use a bunch of the pros. We have 14 on board. We have about 6 on our boat. But our tactician, for example, Cameron Appleton, he's a well-known, long-time international sailor. He's actually the tactician on Quantum Racing. When they're not racing, so when he's not with us. So Juno Swain, he's done 5 Volvo around the world races and 2 or 3 America's Cup. Super talented sailor. Morgan Trubovich, he's done handful of cups. So we've got some great people on board that are really talented and experienced. And you need some of those, but you also need some really great amateurs. We have some great amateurs on board, guys from around here that love sailing, like Kyle Jones. My wife, that's how we met. She's been sailing forever, and she just did 27 hours on the rail hiking, and we're still married. So that's a really good thing. Yeah, and Wally Cross, we had Wally on board, a long-time Detroit sailor who's done probably 200 of these races. So it takes a mix of all.
To have the pros on, is it also kind of from a safety standpoint? Because, when you get the wind blowing in the middle of these lakes, it can get pretty serious pretty quick. Having those pros on, I would think, would give, not that the amateurs don't have that experience, but pros have just seen more. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, these boats, they're fast for a reason. They're really loaded up. They have a deep keel. Our draft is 12.5 feet, a big rig on them with lots of sail area. And when you put these reaching sails up and so forth, these go. I mean, we go 9-2 upwind, so that's pretty crazy. But the masts are very tweaky and fragile, and the runners and all that stuff on them have to be done. There's so many adjustments just on the sail setup and the masts that to get it done right and to be able to handle it when the wind comes up so that things don't break and people don't get hurt and the boat goes super fast, it definitely helps to have a lot of experience.
Is it? I'm just curious. And answer or don't answer this question. I'm just from a personal understanding. This is to campaign a boat for a whole season. Are we talking six figures? Are we talking seven figures?
You know, the sails aren't cheap because they're big sails and so forth. But the boats, you know, I'm a one design guy, and in the winter I race a Melgus 20 or a J70, and certainly this boat costs more to race than that one for sure. But you can really do it at different levels. It depends on how new you want to keep your sails, what kind of crew you want to put in, if you do a lot of the work yourself or if you farm it out or so forth. And certainly if you bring in some pros, you have to pay them. That really impacts the payroll. So there's people doing it for less than that, and there's people doing it for more than that. It just kind of depends on where you want to be with it.
Part of the discussion we're doing our show for this week is we're having conversations not only with you, the winner. Hopefully we'll have Bill Martin on. I'm trying to get him to talk, but we're also talking to, you know, we got several fathers and sons who are racing for the first time on non-touch 30s and other kinds of boats. So you literally, if this is a ski race, you could have an Olympic ski racer coming down. You might have somebody coming down, and I don't want to, you know, it's not necessarily a snowplow, but there's a huge difference between where you are at and where some of the other boats are at. I think that's something that's kind of important to mention.
It's an interesting point you brought up, because I grew up in a running family, and when I quit running, I wanted to get into a sport where breaking the pain barrier wasn't the key determination to success. And so I grew up and I had a sunfish, and I saw the boats go by during the Mackinac race, got enchanted with that, and got in a big boat racing a long time ago. And the neat thing about it that always attracted to me is that I now ride and race bikes, but I can't go and race bikes against the best in the world. You know, you're just not that good and old. But the neat thing about sailboat racing that I've always really liked is it gives me the opportunity to race with and against the very best in the sport. I mean, we have America's Cup people on board, Volvo's winners on board, Olympic champions, great Olympic sailors. I love racing against and with, and it's the only sport I get the opportunity to do that. And that's something that's really excites me.
You grew up in Grand Rapids?
I actually grew up in East Lansing and then northern Michigan, and moved to Grand Rapids right after I graduated from state. So I've been there for 30 plus years. I'm actually in our Traverse City office right now, where we have a cottage up here. And this is where I got enticed by the whole sailing bug in the first place.
I'm a Spartan as well. I was a Spartan women's
lacrosse
for 8 or 9 years. So I'm 76, just not that it matters, but go green, as they say.
85, yeah. I was lucky to grow up in East Lansing. Magic Johnson's mom worked in our school cafeteria. My dad started taking me to games when I was 4, and I was really lucky to just watch all that stuff. So I have a green flag that I love to fly, and Bill Martin doesn't like it, but he's a wonderful Wolverine to respect. So
he is, and I once asked him. I had the chance to ask him. I said, "I understand you got into sailing before you got into athletic administration." And he kind of spurred at that question. He wasn't real happy with that question, but the point was the guy can sail. You grew up sailing small boats, so you went through junior sailing like all the good racers have.
Actually, I didn't, because I grew up in a running family, and then my parents had a little cottage up here, and I saw people with sunfish on the beach, so I'd beg, borrow, and steal to go on them. And I actually took a sailing class merit badge for Boy Scouts, and finally talked to my dad to go at halfsies on the sunfish. So cut a bunch of lawns, bought the sunfish, and then just was addicted. I'd sail it every day, and then the Manitou is right in front of the cottage. I'd see boats go by once a year during the Mac race, and was totally enchanted. So once I got out of school, I talked to a couple of my buddies that had been working for a couple of years to, let's buy a racing sailboat. I didn't help get the loan approved at all. It was their names that got us through, and it's been an addiction kind of ever since.
With your wife on the board, obviously you're the skipper. What was her position, and how does that dynamic work?
She likes to say she sits up in the front of the boat and breaks the waves because it keeps her as far away from me as possible. But she does. She grew up in a sailing family, a scow racer at Crystal Lake, and that's actually how we met many years ago. But it's awesome to have someone that you love and married to that has the exact passion. She lets me spend the time and the resources on it because she loves it as much too, and she does a lot of logistic work to keep the thing going. And certainly the crew enjoys her a lot more than me. But she makes sure everybody hikes hard because they like it when she out hikes them. So, but she's a very hard worker.
Todd Jones is putting a new furler on my O'Day tomorrow because it's cheaper to put a new furler on than it is to get a divorce lawyer.
Yeah, there you go. Smart, very smart.
Couple quick things on the race. There was your transponder. It stopped at one point, and I know that they were talking about how does that work and the rest of it with nobody at the end. But Bayview had folks at the end of the race doing all the timing. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it was because that's one thing about this boat. We can't put ours, there isn't a backstay, and there's a center post on the transom, but it has our sat phone and our GPS is on it, and that would interfere with that. So we had it on a side stanchion, and we put it there before, but the waves were so big, and there was a fire hose that was hitting the thing. So I thought the things were waterproof, but about halfway in the race, it stopped transmitting because it was full of water. So fortunate, they were at the starting line or finish line there to take our time, and we took a picture of everything as we crossed it. But really smart of Bayview to use those trackers and make the race possible.
Yeah, they worked. I think they worked out pretty well. There was, for a couple hours online, social media being what it is, there was some discussion about how it was conspiracy of whether it was time or not time and all the rest of it. I just find it crazy because they hand timed it. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out.
No, and it's crazy because when we got within cell distance again, when we got up into northern Michigan, I turned my phone back on. I had 2 or 3 friends that said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I realize why you were thinking that now." So,
well, lots of boats had turned around to come home for a variety of reasons. There was I don't know, there must have been half a dozen boats that didn't get past, I don't think, Saginaw. Just turned around.
Yeah.
Al the Clerk turned around with his boat and came home.
Mm.
So, it is where it is. How many campaigns this summer? How many races this summer will you guys do?
So that we normally would have done the Chicago Nude and the Queen's Cup before this. So that was our first one. This weekend, we're super excited about the Manitou Challenge, where we're going to race from Harbor Springs down around the Manitous, Beaver Island, and Fox Islands. You can't think of a more beautiful race course. It'll be like a Caribbean 600 race. So it'll be really neat because these boats will stretch their legs, and that challenges the crews because there's a lot of mark roundings. Every different island, the crews will be very involved. And right now, fingers crossed, as a sailor, as the forecast looks really good, we're excited to do some maybe high wind, downwind running. So we'll have that. And then we're excited the weekend after that. We race actually Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the Regatta, one of my favorite, most beautiful places to race in the world. And then because the Verve Cup was in Chicago, we're not allowed to race there. We moved that event to Bay Harbor Yacht Club, and they've been super accommodating, so we're going to have a race there, 7, 8, 9, 3 days of buoy racing out of Bay Harbor. And then the last one is our first Great Lakes 52 championship, and that's going to be out of Mackinac, September, I think, 10, 11, and 12. And to start this new race, the Manitou race, which we hope becomes a fixture going forward, and to do this Bay Harbor Regatta, we needed to organize an authority, and I really want to say hats off to our Mackinac Bay Yacht Club people because they've become the organizing authority for this weekend's Manitou Challenge, the Bay Harbor Red, and then the one they're hosting in September, and we couldn't do the racing without them. There's been a lot of people that have stepped up to make this stuff happen on very short notice, so we're very grateful to them.
I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. I think there's a lot of folks that are surprised they didn't run the Chicago race, but we ended up coming over here. I run the junior sailing program at Crescent, and nobody wanted to race, and we put a siblings race on about 2 weeks before school let out. And now we're running sort of we took a name from, you said you gotta regatta. We have now one down here called the No Gotta Regatta, so that we kind of stole the words from those guys because we're doing it informally down here because DYRA dropped out of any formal process this year. So we're just trying to get the kids out to have a good time and all the rest of it. But Chicago, up until, literally within the last 3 weeks, everything was closed on the waterfront. So they didn't even have boats in the water. And I think we were a little ahead of the curve, but it works out.
Yep.
Well, listen, last question. How many boats in the Manitou race?
There'll be 5 boats. And then we're picking up. There was another boat that was supposed to be. It's an exciting, brand new 52 that was just built over in Spain called Fox. The owner's from San Diego, but he knew the fleet was here, so he had the boat finished in Spain, shipped here, and they're doing their sea trials right now. And they're not quite ready, I think, for this weekend, but they'll be joining us in Bay for the Ugata and then Bay Harbor. So it's a brand new 52, one of the nicest ones. So we'll add another one here shortly. So I'm excited for that. But it should be great racing. These boats are real greyhounds, and she should be ripping 20 plus knots downwind.
That'd be pretty cool. Listen, I really appreciate your time. You have the best of the. First of all, congratulations for winning, and have a great season the rest of the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're doing stuff for Junior Sailing. We need to get more younger people opportunities to get out and boat and experience our great sport on the water. And we're surrounded by this beautiful place to race, so in sail. So that's great what you're doing. Keep up the awesome work.
Appreciate the work. Go green.
Thank you. Go green, go white.
There you go. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
That was Bob Hughes, who's the skipper of Heartbreaker, who won the 2020 Bayview Mackinac race. Bob had a lot of insights to some of the pros that were on his boat and gave us some insight to sailing long distances, and he should be congratulated for winning this year's race. Coming up is Chris Clark, who was the chairman of the Bayview Mackinac race. Chris is going to talk a little bit about finishing third on Ohana, and he's also going to talk a little bit about the scoring and the tracking system. And I think you'll find his comments insightful, so stay tuned for Chris, and he's coming right up. We're talking with Chris Clark, who is the 2020 Bayview Mackinac Port Huron Mackinac race chairman. And I guess we'll ask the easiest question first. Have you had a chance to take a breath?
Yeah, I have. Gotten a little sleep, and it was good. It was a good regatta. I got to sail in the regatta. Had a great group of volunteers help me up on the island, and things went really, really well.
Now, you were on Ohana and finished third,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, yes?
Pardon?
You were on Ohana and you finished third?
Yes. Yeah, we finished third overall. We were, I think, what were we? 1, 2, 3. We were the fourth boat to finished third overall.
You know, because of the weather, I'd asked this question of Bob Hughes. You didn't take the Cove course, but because of the switch in wind and because you're sailing a little closer to shore, I think you guys sailed almost as many miles if you'd have taken the Cove course.
Yes, we did. Yeah, it was upwind slog all the way. And, the first Mackinac race I've ever done where there's not been any, no spinnakers, no crack sheets, no reaching, no nothing. No party sails at all.
I guess the first question to ask you about just the race itself, it came off. Everybody's happy. It was a great race. But you had so many moving balls before the race. Did you learn some things for next year because of the pressure you were under because of the pandemic?
Well, I wouldn't say because of the pandemic. I mean, I've still got to, like I said, give credit to, the volunteers that support us. They've been incredibly flexible. And, this year, just to comply with the needs on the island, we cut our volunteer staff on the island by about 75%. And, so there are a lot of people this year who worked really hard to support the race, but then didn't get to go up there and, hang out and, support the race up on the island. And I know we disappointed them a little bit, but, super glad to have them support us.
Well, under the circumstances, getting a race off and a race of this magnitude is pretty spectacular. I mean, you guys busted your butts and you did a great job. Everybody had a great things to say up on the island and certainly around the area. And I think that's a tribute to how hard your volunteers have worked. I think one of the things prior to the race, you were changing and certainly using social media to keep everybody up to date because there were certainly lots of misinformation before the race started, just because people talk.
Well, I can't tell you how many people told me that the race chairman canceled the race. So, I don't know where they were getting their information, but the race chairman was telling me something completely different.
I think the nature of the social media, sometimes it just gets a little confused. So
yeah, I think so too.
It's one of those things. Any stories, any anecdotes from the race that sort of hit you?
No, I mean, I'd say I'm a bit of a convert. The shore course, this is the second time in my life I've done the shore course, and I've done, more than 30 Port Huron Mackinac races. And it was a tough course this year. The fact that it was a beat, both sides of the race course were, I know a lot of people thought that the Canadian shoreline was favored, but, we were hard over on the other shoreline, and it certainly didn't hurt us. So, it was a good, tough race course.
From watching the tracking, I think only one or two boats ended up over on the Canadian side to come back across because of the way the wind was. There was a penalty, I think, at some point.
Well, that's interesting. A lot of people think that because they see it on the internet, it's true. People need to understand that the race tracker, when you look at it on your phone, when you look at it on your iPad, that's infotainment. That's not a precision navigational piece of data at that time. The
Makes
yellow brick
sense.
tracker has several functions and does several different things during the race. And it's every time it turns on, every time it talks to the satellites, it gets a new set of instructions from the satellites on what it should do for the next period of time. And, we're concerned about making sure the battery lasts. And keep in mind, Yellow Brick wants these batteries to last for more than one race. Typically, they would have gone right from our race to Chicago or right from Chicago to us. And they would have gotten recharged, but if one got missed, got out to a competitor, they want it to last. So what they do is they tell it, every 15 minutes, wake up, take a couple data points. And those data points are really quite accurate. But, there's interpolation between the lines. So just because it looks like a boat was over the line doesn't necessarily mean it was. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that we caught every boat that went over the line. People kind of made a big deal about, being on that side of the race course. But like I said, I'm the navigator on Ohana. We were clear over on the other side of the race course, and it certainly didn't hurt us. And, there are a couple of boats that are kind of getting beat up for being over the border. And, if you look at it, it's not like they sailed over there on, let me think about it, on port tack, got a huge header, tacked over, came out on a huge lift and won, because of that. They just kind of sailed straight, went over and, sailed back. And also nobody's discussed yet the number of boats that went over and then withdrew.
Right.
So, everybody's all excited that a couple of lines crossed the international border, but this was marked as NP, so not protestable by a competitor. And I've talked to our chief judge, and he has recommended no protest against those boats.
Okay.
And because when you mark it as NP, it becomes what they refer to as a technical protest. I'm not the rules guy.
Right.
I'm a sailing rules guy. I'm not. This is outside of my strong suit. But and typically there would have been a time penalty. But the boats that they did very, very well. It would have had to have been just a ridiculous time penalty that didn't fit the crime.
How many boats started?
103.
And how many finished?
I want to say about 90. There were 18 withdrawals.
Okay. So
yeah, I remember Mary Breeden telling me there were 18 withdrawals.
Is that pretty typical?
It might be a little high, but given that we had a beat and pretty good breeze, I consider it normal for those conditions. It was bumpy out there.
Yeah. And how many typically last year? How many boats did you have last year?
Oh, we were probably up in 220 kind of thing, 205 to 220, and we probably had a similar number of dropouts. So the numbers are pretty high, but keep in mind also, this is our first year for the sport boat class. The sport boats are boats that easily go on trailers, and I'm not sure I would have wanted to do this race in a Melgus 32. So
No.
I might have voted for the trailer too.
I ask about the Canadian border because if you read all of the information, you're literally, if you go over the line, there's going to be PT boats waiting for you to arrest you. It wasn't quite that a negative, but
well, and if you really read the rules, it is not a boy. I can't tell you how many people argued this point over and over and over again. The issue with the Canadian border was they have it's a sovereignty issue. They have you cross the border, you have to have a quarantining plan. And it has nothing about you putting your anchor down. It has nothing about safety at sea. It has nothing about international maritime law. When you cross the border, you need to have a quarantine plan. And for people to cross the border, they would have need to have had that quarantine plan. And if not, there's a fine for each person that doesn't have it. The Canadian Coast Guard, the OPP, they were great. They didn't hassle anybody. They didn't give anybody a hard time. I know some people the weekend before the race did some kind of dumb things up in the Port Huron area. I'm not saying Port Huron Yacht Club members did it, but there were some people up there that did some dumb things that put the OPP on pretty high alert, and got a little lecturing from them. But no, everybody behaved, and the authorities supported us. We had good support from all our Canadian representatives. When I say representatives, the representatives of the Canadian government that were policing their side, and they worked with us. It was good. But still, it's a sovereign border. They get to patrol their borders. It's not, yeah. So you got to abide by their rules.
Yeah. Even coming under the bridge, could you stay on the east side of the river going out to the lake? Based on, or did you have to stay on the west side of the river going out?
We went up on the west side of the river, but I've gone up the west side of the river, the middle of the river, and the east side of the river on a Tartan 10, and it takes you a little longer, but you can still do it. Same thing. People kind of overplay the drama associated with that.
Right. With all of the work that goes into this race, which is probably more than a full-time job, was when the race finally came and you finally got to put the sails up, was that sort of the bonus for you as a tactician, for just being able to enjoy it for 3 days without having anybody in your ear?
Well, I met the race committee and helped them untie their dock lines, and I told Jeff Meyer, our principal race officer, I feel great. I'm protestable now. You can protest me.
Last question. You're the only Commodore that I'm aware of that has faced the kind of issues you've faced. What could you tell previous Commodores, and what will you tell future Commodores about your experience?
Oh, yeah, race chairman, but
race chairman.
Yeah, but sorry. Be patient. Keep working the problem. It's just a problem to solve. You work the problem through, and use the resources that are available to you. And all clubs have great volunteer staffs. All the clubs around have great professional staffs. Our board of governors at Bayview. We specifically have the Mackinac Race Foundation that helps support the regatta. And our sponsors were great. All our supporters were great. Our staff was great, and our volunteers were great. And listen to them. Take care of your people, and go out and have fun.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you spending a couple minutes with us. I just wanted to get to sort of a post-game commentary, and I think you deserve certainly a big thanks for putting the race on, and appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just wanted to comment that, on some of the social media platforms, people are kind of blowing up over this border thing. I will get something written up, and I will get it out, but I will get it out when we have a complete story to discuss. And we're working with Yellow Brick, but like I said, I've talked to I've talked to a jury, and they are not inclined to penalize those boats. And I'm just the race chairman. People think that I'm omnipotent or something like that. No, I report to the jury here, and I work for them, and I got to take their guidance.
Apologies to your Commodore, who I named as not the race chairman, you being the race chairman.
Yeah.
So you have what's left of a great summer, and again, I appreciate your time, and be safe.
Hey, you too, and thanks for letting me participate here, and thanks for giving me a call, and have a great evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks. Hi guys, thanks for watching Great Lakes Sailing. We're in the Petoskey downtown municipal arena, and had a chance to get around a bunch of places today. So hopefully you enjoyed the show about the Mackinac. We'll have some folks back for next week, and enjoy the summer. It's getting hot again, and stay healthy, stay safe.